Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the top 10 weapons that are craftable within the Soulforge in Gems of War. Recently, as of this most recent week, actually, just like 6 days ago, 7 days ago, well actually I don't know when this video will be up, but last week, we ended up getting the ability to start getting weapons from the Soulforge that used to be within the game that we'll be able to just simply craft via the Soulforge. This will be based on whatever the kingdom is every single Monday reset day, and I'll be going over those, of course, every single Monday. However, I did want to just mention some to kind of keep an eye out for. The top 10 best weapons to consider crafting that are available only in the Soulforge. Keep in mind that these will not be including any of the faction weapons, since you can technically just get them off of a slightly different rotation than how these are going, since these are simply based on the kingdom, and also since those could technically be bought with gems, whereas these will only be within the Soulforge. And I believe there might be doing some kind of $5 offer for them as well occasionally into the future, but they're mainly just within the Soulforge. First off is Flameifer. This would probably be higher up. It's obviously main thing that this thing is normally used for, obviously, is the Flameifer, Yagwe, Tepon, Queen Titania. It's one of the strongest teams in the entire game. It has lasted that way for a year, almost 2 years now. Pretty much since this weapon existed, it has been among one of the best teams in the game. Here are all the perks and everything. One of the reasons why this is kind of considered not as high of a craft, even though it is used for quite literally one of the best teams in the game, is mainly because the Urskea crown that you get for free from Urskea Kingdom is pretty much the same thing. Not exactly, but close enough that you can definitely get away with Urskea crown instead of using this, or even Mountain Crusher in some instances, depending on your team. Definitely a great weapon to have, but it's really only used in that one context with that one team. It's not really used in almost anything else other than specifically Flameifer, Yagwe, Tepon, Queen Titania. And that's his other big limitation. Next up we have is Drill Shooter. This is a relatively recent weapon, but still an old weapon nonetheless. That will be rotating around through Soulforge, of course. This is just a standard kind of, if you just look at its ability, you'd kind of like think it's barely anything. It's just a little bit of an Adana bonus. However, all of its value comes from that 20% chance to kill the first enemy every cast. There are only 2 weapons that have it, and this is the only viable weapon that currently has it. This is extremely good given that it has a really loopable ability, meaning you can target out some kind of other troop that isn't first slot while constantly trying to press the 20% chance to instantly kill their first slot. And you can just keep casting that over and over again, since it'll just keep feeding mana into your other troops, a bunch of yellow and red. You can then use those yellow and red troops to feed back into your drill, and just keep repeating that cycle until you just instantly kill in the entire enemy team. It's, if I'm not mistaken, the best instant kill weapon in the entire game, oddly enough. Unfortunately, it's still a bit underwhelming compared to some weapons. There's not really too many good Adana troops. There's still a lot of limitations. But into the future, definitely something to keep an eye on, especially since this will be coming in alongside an Adana event, which means at least one more likely mech troop, or if nothing else, definitely at least an Adana troop, if not multiple. So whenever that event does come back around, this weapon might become quite a bit more valuable, because those troops that it comes in with could potentially end up making this weapon even better than it currently is. And next up, we have ourselves Stone Slicer. Stone Slicer, a little bit of an odd weapon. The biggest thing that actually makes it beneficial, again, it's not one of those kind of double, or it's one of those double mana things based specifically on a typing. There's quite a few of these weapons coming into the game these days. It seems rather standard until you look at what its manas actually are, purple and brown, and one of the colors it uses is purple. For whatever reason, it is currently the only one of these double mana based on type weapons that specifically feed back into itself, which makes it really good with things like Gargoyle and, you know, basically anything, that it can end up feeding the brown to some kind of other good brown construct while using the purple to replenish its own mana. It has a lot of potential into the future, especially if we ever get the 50 mana start and other similar things to kind of synergize into that. So yeah, has a lot of potential, definitely something to keep an eye on. And if nothing else, it works pretty good for delves as a Mountain Crusher alternative. Hope's Crescent, not as good as the other Mang-like weapons, however, still a relatively relevant one. It ends up doing, you know, the standard armor tier that a Mang-like weapon would do, a standard amount of damage. However, if the enemy has more HP than you, which would be most instances where you'd be using a Mang-like weapon, like in raids, invasions, Tower of Doom, delves, stuff like that, it'll end up doing triple the amount of damage, which in this case would be 90 damage, though in those game modes it would be even more due to those extra magic bonuses that you could possibly have, particularly from things like Delves and Tower of Doom. So it could potentially be okay there. There are some specific instances that you bring them out, similar to a Ketris, which is what this weapon kind of reminds me of, as far as like how it looks. But it functions kind of similarly to it as far as the level range that you use it on. Like you would use it mostly on like level 100 to 200 delves for the most part. Like that kind of level range is where this weapon would mostly shine best, where the enemy is still higher than you, but still capable of potentially being killed by the boost ratio, since you would have like 45 magic, if not higher by then, tripled up to be able to one-shot them. So around that general area, basically, when the enemy has, where it works is when the enemy has a higher HP than you, but also a low enough HP that they'll die to this in one shot. That is when this weapon is good. And there are some instances in raids, invasions, those like the middle section of it, the earlier middle section, where that weapon will actually shine. Also, I made main to do this for every single one. Sorry if I haven't been. I've been meaning to show whatever perks it ends up having, just to kind of show it, because I know there's not really any way in game to see it for these older weapons or for any of them that you don't own, which there was, but there isn't. So I do want to show those as well, just so you guys can see all the extra effects. Most of them don't have anything too relevant. If it has anything ultra relevant, I will mention it. Like obviously with the drill, with its 20% instant kill, that's rather relevant, as that's almost the entirety of the weapon. That's not what I want. But anyways, next up is Divine Protector. It's mainly used with pure Divine teams or almost pure Divine teams. There's a lot of different things that you could potentially use it with. A lot of Divines end up using red or yellow. Has a lot of additional effects that are good on it, like Barrier, Cleanse. Ends up giving some extra mana to your yellow allies, which almost could be your entire team if you're using Divines, as almost every Divine is yellow. There's a lot of things going for it. It's really good with Priest class, really good if you're just using triple Divines with it, like Divine Shpala Kula and something else, or Infernus with like another Divine into Divine Shpala. That's just a few combinations that you can still get out with it. Some of it's not as meta as it used to be, but still has a lot more combinations than something like Flame or Fur, that is for sure. Next up, we have ourselves every single Doom weapon. I specifically just put Doom Seif here, but every single Doom, or not every doomed weapon, but every doomed weapon that is a full AoE into converting all of a certain color into Doom Skulls are basically all tied in 5th. I just specifically chose this one because this one's probably the best one out of all of them, if I just had to choose one. But quite literally all 6 of them are basically at this exact same tied category, in that they all basically follow the same premise. They get a really solid AoE, they get to convert a anti-color into Doom Skulls, and then they end up getting their extra Doom Skulls created if there's a Doom on the opposing team, and gains a bunch of mana based on the typing. They also all have a bunch of different various effects, but all of them are kind of tied in that area. Main thing holding them back, even though quite a few of them can be pretty decent, especially this one, biggest thing holding them back is nothing there. But, well, some of them have a weird gem spawn, like I believe the blue one does. But it's more so just the fact that they are going to be really expensive. They do seem to be about 50% more, and doomed weapons already cost like 800 diamonds. We haven't seen a doom weapon there yet, but if that's the case, they're probably going to cost like 1,400 diamond. That's 1/3 of a mythic just for a doom weapon, which is quite pricey to say the least. That's actually like extremely pricey. But yeah, if they end up doing that with it, that's hopefully it'll only be 1,000 instead of 1,400. But that's going to be quite the toll, since regardless, it's going to be like 1/4 to 1/3 of a mythic in order to craft one single doom weapon. And that's not even counting the useless ones. That's actually for like a decent one. Of course, you'd still have to spend the exact same for one of those useless HP gain doom weapons as well. So it's going to be a little bit annoying to try to reclaim them all if you do want to try reclaiming those. But any of the doom-like weapons, particularly the purple one, and I believe the brown one, but I know for sure the purple are among some of the better ones. Anyways, next one up here, we have Earth's Fury. This is a old-time weapon, but it's basically like Mang, if Mang gave attack to everything rather than just to itself. It's particularly good in invasions, since you can end up using this to actually gain more value out of your attacks than you would even get out of Mang, since they have a 6x boost ratio and has a 3-to-1 based on the thing. So you would end up overall gaining a way higher attack, basically nearly double the amount of attack than that of which you would get out of the value of a Mang. It's like, well, 1.66, I believe, extra damage compared to if you were just use Mang. So Earth's Fury has its purposes. It's also, other than invasions, probably the other noteworthy thing is to give Iron Gut attack value so that you can go into one-shot devourers and basically anything where you ever need a high attack value specifically for your team in order to do something, or even just in general, like an Ubisay or something, could theoretically work with it, though it does have color conflict in that regard. But yeah, decent weapon. It's basically alternative Mang that just distributes the attack rather than hogging it all onto one single troop. Obviously, it doesn't give as much to each individual thing, but when you have a good boost ratio, like a troop like Web Spinner running with triple damage, or any of the invasion troops running with 5 times, then it can be quite decent. Rope Dart, most of you probably know how annoying Rope Dart is. I didn't put it in first just because there are, you don't really use it invasively as much. You use it more so defensively, I would say. However, you all know what it's used with. Divinish Ball, Aquila, and Rope Darts, Bunny. There's a few different combinations and hero class combinations that you can do with it. But that's a general premise. Divinish Ball, Aquila, and an Infinite Skull combo into spamming a billion Rope Darts into the Bunny, giving them free yellow mana at the start of battle. It is a very, very annoying weapon to deal with. It drags them right up to the front. Here's all their armor, almost kills them with the damage. Entangles them so they can't even do anything. Automatic extra turn has a lot of value on it. Definitely worth perking all the way up because of the extra turn too. It's also the only Mang-like weapon with extra turn attached to it, which is the other thing that makes it really annoying. That and the Entangle that it has. This has a lot of really good things happening all at once going on with that weapon. Next one, Yasmin's Pride. This is insanely broken for upscaling, particularly with Ketris and other similar things that can boost based on HP. It's mainly used for Tower of Doom and Delves for being able to do those game modes. However, there are some contexts where you can use it for raids, invasions, and other things like that. But definitely Tower of Doom and Delves being the 2 most notorious locations for this. It's yet another Mang-like weapon. It destroys an enemy's armor and then gives a bunch of allies life boosted by the armor destroyed. And you can end up getting a lot of value out of this, since that's a 3-to-1 based on how much armor you destroyed. Even if they only have 90 armor, that's additional 30. You're basically doubling that thing's effect. So quite a bit of potential that you can end up getting out of that. Other than that, nothing really too good on its perks, but still ends up helping get it a little bit more mana back, if nothing else. And number 1, some of you might already know what this is based on what I haven't said. Some of these could theoretically be switched by a few values, but I would probably say Trickshot. It's basically Mang. If Mang gave it to your cast rather than to your attack value. There are some specific instances where this is better, and that would mainly probably be Bounty Hunter for the most part. Really good at getting that killed quickly, as well as any game mode where you specifically need to target past certain enemies. And basically what I mean by that is if their first 2 slots or so are particularly tanky, or if they have a really important 3rd or 4th slot that just needs to die, you would normally go with more of a Trickshot rather than a Mang, because if you use a Mang, it would just take too long to keep constantly just using the Mang and then going skull, skull, skull. Whereas you could just use Trickshot a few times, get up to 1-shot cast, start killing out the important things, and then kind of go from there. It's also a little bit better if you're just using a bunch of true damage in combination with other various teams. There are some teams that end up running that way. But yeah, it's mainly just an inverse version of Mang. Instead of getting it to your attack value, you're basically getting all of the extra damage towards your magic. It is a 3-to-1 boost ratio rather than the 1-to-1 that Mang has, but it has the luxury of being able to target anything, and it doesn't require skulls since all you need is your cast. It does have the really big benefit as well of gaining enchant, so you will be able to get this up automatically within 8 turns, even if you get no mana whatsoever. It would only take 8 turns, and obviously it would take way less than that if you were to actually take any mana whatsoever. So has that going for it. Has Hunter's Mark, so if you're doing this with like a Enraged Titan or something similar, you can almost one-shot things just off of that Hunter's Mark into Enrage. So has that thing going for it. And it also just has the other 2 little bit of skill reduction stuff, or skill reduction to skill gain. But overall, probably one of the better ones. Not necessarily the best, it just really depends on what you're looking to do. This one's a little bit better for Bounty Hunter and some single targeting instances. This is a little bit better if you're looking for something for specifically Delves or Tower of Doom. This one's a little bit better if you're just looking to absolutely destroy in PvP or Guild Wars. So they all have their kind of specific purpose that they serve. And they could all theoretically, all 3 of those could theoretically be the number 1 best weapon to go and craft. But there's some things to be looking out for in Soulforge. They'll be coming out on their respective weeks. So for example, Yasmin's Pride would end up coming out whenever we end up getting the next Kazil event, and so on and so forth. I mean, sorry, not Kazil, Pensville, whatever it says on there. I was reading the hero class one, but whatever it says over on the weapon itself is what it would end up coming in. So for example, Trickshot is Bright Forest, and if I'm not mistaken, Bright Forest is actually right around the corner as well, like another month or so. But Yeah, it's based on whatever it says on the card over there, and that's basically the kingdom that it would be associated with whenever it would come back into the game on Soulforge, because all these weapons are coming back respectively on whenever their kingdom has their next event, basically. So you'd be able to craft them in then in the Soulforge. Their specific location, of course, would just be under games, under Soulforge, under troops, and similar to how, sorry, not under troops, under weapons, obviously, and they would just be around right over here, like right where Stone Aegis is, and a legendary one should cost about this exact same, if not exactly the same, just that amount of resources. Of course, Doom ones will probably cost more, Epic ones will probably cost less, but that's basically how they're going to be running down. Anyways, guys, that will wrap it up for now. If you still have any other questions about the weapons, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful day. Goodbye, everyone!